Hi there guys, Ken here, your Thrifty Apprentice, and welcome back to another Thrifty Review. In today's Thrifty Review, guys, we are taking a look at ShinHan Professional Watercolors. If you have been following the channel, you already know, and if you're new, I'll let you know, we've already done an unboxing, swatching, first demo. There's actually been a second field test and even a third field test for these, and we're going to get into looking at all of those paintings plus some things that I've done or I'm doing with them currently off camera, to let you know how they perform and all. So if you guys remember, they came in this straightforward cardboard box. There was nothing much to it, very limited information on the box. There's no light fast or pigment information actually listed on the box. There's no swatch or anything of that nature. All of the information is basically on the inside. You're going to get the names of the full color range, and in here you're going to have 18 tubes from the full color range. These are 7.5 milliliter tubes. If you remember, they were screw-on tops. They did not have a foil covering them. The consistency was pretty decent. Panning them up, there wasn't a huge consistency difference. There was no binder separation from the pigments, so we didn't experience any of that. The tubes do have the color name, the pigment information, as well as the light fast ratings, and there's also a transparency stamp included. So that was that, pretty much straightforward. We did a swatching, if you guys remember. Let's take a real quick look, and there was also some testing done during that swatching, if you remember. I've gone ahead and filled in the relevant information just so we can jump into talking about the actual paints. But we did a salt test, which turned out pretty decently, as most salt tests do. The lift test I always do with you guys. We're going to go ahead and do that right now and knock that out the way, so we can see how the paints will lift, although I already know based on the paintings I've done. But let's just get a pretty general idea. Do I have a paper towel? You guys know I'm always trying to do a lift test without a paper towel, and that again is the case. So let's just get scrub here. This is a Manta scrubber by Royal and Langnickel. I actually like that set of brushes. It was one of the first set of brushes I purchased and used, and it's really nice. As you can see, it lifts okay. These paints do stain. We're going to take a look at that in a minute. And as I said earlier, I am doing some paintings with the paints currently, so my palette is going to be a little dirty when we look at that. So there you see, the paints will lift, but not a lot. They lift moderately. As a matter of fact, that's one of the things I was having an issue with one of the current paintings. So they will stain, and I do believe that's because of the pigment makeup. Now here we did some color mixing, as you can see, and I did mix on the paper. If I remember, we got a pretty vibrant purple, pretty decent green. I wasn't really satisfied with the orange, but it is what it is. You have a vermilion hue included in the set, so you do have an orangey red to work from as a base to mix your oranges with. So I panned them up. The paints did dry down really well. Didn't have an issue with that. They re-wet really well. Let's see, there was no cracking or anything of that nature. And like I said, the binding had no separation. So, you know, they didn't seem to be a cheap quality paint at all. Based on the actual physicalities of the paint. Now, when we jump into swatching them out, originally, I'm going to be honest, I thought I wasn't going to like these paints. One, because I noticed that there was a lot of multiple pigment mixes in the box. Two, I thought that they seemed a little heavy, especially after the glazing layer here in the swatching on this particular paper. We're going to talk about that in a second. So as you can see, I swatched the paints out. I got a watery layer to give me an idea of what they would look like watered down, especially if I was trying to do a background, say maybe in sky or water. And then of course I did a glazing on top of that because I wanted to know how the paints would layer. And with the black line being down, I was also testing the opacity based on that layering. Now I will say that the paints do get more opaque as you layer them. Now the first layer, especially if you're using a lot of water, maybe not so much. You may can get some transparency out of them, but as you start to layer the paints, especially for more saturation, they are going to take on a more opaque feel and a more opaque look. So I think that's something you should be aware of if this is a set that you decide to get. Now jumping into the actual pigment makeup, let's see. I got some notes over here, and you guys know I always check my notes just to make sure I don't miss anything. Now, jumping into the actual pigment makeup of all this. These were some really strange pigments in some cases with some of these some of these colors. I ran across a lot of pigments that I was not necessarily familiar with. And I did have to go do some research. Now, I always tell you guys, or I've been telling you lately, that I think Kimberly Crick is a great resource for pigment information and light fast testing when it comes to paints. Very reliable information, I do believe. And I always kind of include her blogs into my research when I'm looking into a paint and when I'm, you know, getting ready to see how they perform. So, first of all, let's just say I do believe this set has a lot of, it has dyes, neon dyes, maybe added to it for some of the brighter colors. Now, that didn't affect the mixability of the paints. I do believe that you got some really clean mixes from them, ironically enough, although a lot of them are dual or triple pigment. Now, you do have your cerulean blue, which is a single pigment. Of course, PB15 is phthalo blue. I honestly think that it has some white in it in order to get it to be the color that they needed for cerulean blue hue, which is enlisted, but I do believe that to be the case. Now here, your cobalt blue, you have PB29, which we know to be ultramarine blue, but it's a dual pigment. It's PB29 mixed with PB13, which is phthalo blue green shade. So I wouldn't, you know, I don't know for that to be a common mix, and it's a hue on top of all of that. Let's see, I did understand why the lemon yellow, which is PY3, was stretched with a white PW6. I didn't understand that. I mean, I've seen a lot of budget sets, and I've reviewed and tested a lot of budget sets, and a lot of them, I've never seen any set that I know of list a white pigment in their lemon yellow as to stretch it. So I just found that kind of strange. There was some few fugitive pigments in here. For instance, the pigment violet 3 that's in the violet mixture is a pretty fugitive pigment. The yellow ochre had PY83 in it, which I found was a pretty, it's an okay middle of the road pigment, and it's the pigment that is singularly making up the permanent yellow deep. So again, some strange mixes. Your vermilion had PO16 and PR41:A, which were both listed as pretty fugitive pigments, although they have it listed as 3 stars. So I found that really funny. Anything else? The olive green had PG8 in it, which when I did the research on that one, because I wasn't familiar with it, it said it was a middle of the road pigment as far as light fastness goes, but I noticed that they have it rated at 2 stars mixed with PY1 and PY2. So just think it was a really strange makeup. A lot of the pigments are really strange. The Van Dyke Brown, which was PR101, which is typically Venetian red color maybe. So this one must be milled a little differently in order to give it a deeper brown tone. Then here you have a brown, which I think is burnt sienna, their version of burnt sienna, but they just call it brown. And it's PBR7. So guys, the pigment makeup is not necessarily something common, but again, they did not mix to make mud. Now, they definitely wouldn't be anything that I use in any type of commission work. I do believe that this is a paint set that's meant for practice, meant for doing your sketchbook work. If you're going to be reproducing your work like I do a lot, then these paints will work really well, which I think maybe the reason that they're getting, or that they're gonna get, despite the pigment makeup, they're gonna get a pretty decent review from me, because for the way that I paint and the things that I do, the paints will work, right? And I don't think that they are expensive at all. So let's just finish getting. Let me make sure I've said everything that I want to say about the pigment makeup. Yeah, so you know, that's pretty much what I had to say about that. I think the paints are okay. We're gonna take a look at them. Some paintings that I've done with them. Of course, you guys, they don't flow well. Let me say that. It really just depends. I did that flow test back on the unboxing video, if you guys want to go back and check that out. And I'll be sure to link the unboxing video as well as the links to all of the paintings that I've done with them in the video description as well. So let's just take a look here. If you guys remember, the first painting we did, which was done in the unboxing, was this landscape, and this was actually more of an intermediate painting. It turned out well, guys. It kind of shocked me how much I liked the way that the paints handled. This was on, if I'm not mistaken, New York Central 100% watercolor, 100% cotton watercolor paper. So I think that they definitely perform better on 100% cotton, where most paints do. So that's not saying much one way or the other. But I was able to mix. The colors were right. There's not a huge shift between the wet to the dry color. So they retained that. Here I did the glazing technique. Turned out really well. I like the way it turned out. Now, of course, I always think there's so much more room for, excuse me, for improvement with my paintings, which is why I practice every day. But it turned out pretty decent for the level I feel that I'm at. The next painting that we did, or that I did with the paints, was this landscape. Again, a little bit more towards the intermediate side. Glazing technique used on this one, I think I was kind of like, I took inspiration from a Chris Petrie painting, or one of his tutorials when I was doing this one. It turned out decent. Again, I love the way the paints do not mud up. You see how you're able to keep the separation in color? I was able to glaze and layer those colors into each other in that wet wash without them getting muddy or losing their vibrancy. They play really well with each other on the paper. I was really surprised, considering in the back of my mind, all I could think about was the pigment makeup. And then finally, more so towards the beginner side, I put up these like 4 little mini landscapes that were intended to be turned into journaling cards for art journals or junk journals. But it's also, I felt like they were also great for, you know, just doing a beginner friendly landscape tutorial in the watercolors. And we use the paints. And as you can see how vibrant they are. I mean, I don't have to keep saying they're really nice. And this is actually a student grade paper. This is not 100% cotton. This is Strathmore for 100 series, 140 pound cold press, which I think is a great paper, by the way. It's about as good as it gets before the step up to cotton, if the truth be told. And these paintings turned out really nice, guys. These colors were beautiful. I don't have any complaints. I really don't. I don't have any complaints, considering the pigment makeup. Don't use them. Do not use them. Don't sell the work that you use them for. Don't sell that work at all. Let me see. Am I leaving off anything? The paints are going to hit you for $28.50, which when you divide that out over 18 tubes, put you at $1.58 per tube, making them one of the cheapest student grade paints on the market, especially for a student grade paint that performs this way. With that said, I would put these up against Cotman, Phoenix. What else have I tried? Grumbacher Academy, any of those legacy brands. I will put this up against that. I think I like these better than, like, say, my Koi Sketchbox. I like them better than a lot of the student grade paints that we've tried. I like them better than the Master's Touch. I like them better than the Doodle Hog. Yeah, so I think that these are a good buy, guys. Now, am I saying run out and get them? No, I'm not. If you have paints already, then by all means use what you have. But if you're looking for paints and you run across these and you're thinking about getting them, I just wanted you to have this information so that you can make a rational decision. $1.58 per tube. And I think that if you buy the bigger set, they're even cheaper than that per tube. So that might be an even better buy. I say do the math on that. Keep in mind that ShinHan is a Korean art company, Korean art producer. So this is going to be an Asian made paint. So there you have it, guys. I recommend paints. I say go for it. I think that they'll be a good gift. I think that they're a good beginner paint for like a student, school grade, scholarly grade, even like a college student that may be in design. These are good paints for like a design student. The pigmentation makeup of them, it reminds me a lot of gouache sometimes, depending on the company that makes it, because those paints lend more to people that does like that designing, illustration type work that's meant to be reproduced. So I definitely think that this is good for that, which is probably, again, why I like the paints. So there you have it, guys. Hopefully you heard something in this that is going to help you make a rational decision on whether this is something you want to add to your art collection. Don't forget to give the video a thumbs up if you found any of this information helpful at all, or just because you got the information and you got to watch the video. Share the video, because sharing is caring, and it'll help the channel grow. If you're new to the channel, please consider subscribing. If you're already subscribed, or if you're new, hit the notification bell so you'll know when all that new content comes out. We have it released on Wednesday, every other Thursday, Friday, and Sunday. That is the current lineup. The video description will have links for the most recommended product list, the Etsy shop if you're interested, as well as all of the relevant links for all of these goodies. So there you have it. Thank you guys for joining me. Remember, as I tell you at the end of every single video, just keep painting and crafting.